My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 42 years old, and I'm a librarian. I stood on the curb, the gravel crunching under my worn sneakers, watching the minivan pull away. Inside, my sister Melanie craned her neck, her perfectly coiffed blonde head tilted, a triumphant smirk plastered across her face. She waved, a slow, deliberate motion that felt less like a goodbye and more like a final dismissal. The rest of my family, packed into the vehicle for their annual pilgrimage to Aunt Carol's summer house in Maine, didn't even look back. They were all laughing, their voices fading with the hum of the engine, leaving me behind with nothing but the dust settling on the driveway and the stifling August heat. The sting of their collective abandonment was sharp, a familiar ache, but this time, it was different. This time, I knew they were driving straight into the biggest surprise of their lives. They thought they'd finally cut me out of everything. They were wrong. To understand why that moment felt like a turning point, you need to know about the house, and about Melanie. Our parents had lived in that grand, slightly dilapidated Victorian on Elm Street for 40 years. It was a house full of memories, creaky floorboards, and the scent of old books and lemon polish. When they both passed away within 6 months of each other 3 years ago, the will was clear: the house, and everything in it, was to be divided equally between Melanie and me. Melanie, however, had other ideas. She was always the golden child, the one with the dazzling smile and the ability to charm anyone. I was the quiet one, content with my books and my routines. While I grieved, Melanie swooped in, declaring she needed to take care of the house. She moved in, changed the locks, and started redecorating without a single conversation with me. My childhood bedroom became her yoga studio. The formal dining room, where we'd celebrated countless holidays, was transformed into a chaotic craft room. When I visited, I felt like an intruder, a guest in my own home. "Oh, Sarah, darling, you know how much work this place is," she'd say, waving a dismissive hand at the dust motes dancing in the sunlight. "Someone has to be here to keep an eye on things. You're so busy with your library." The implication was always clear: I was too impractical, too detached, to me to handle something as important as the family home. I'd try to offer help, to contribute to the upkeep, but she'd bat away my suggestions with a practiced smile. No, I've got it. Don't you worry your pretty little head." The first year was a slow erosion. She'd complain about the property taxes, the leaky faucet, the cost of a new roof, always implying I should contribute more, but never providing a single receipt or invoice. When I asked for access to the joint bank account our parents had set up for household expenses, she'd claim the online banking was acting up or she'd forgotten the password. She'd even started subtly moving some of my parents' cherished possessions, items I remembered fondly, into her own bedroom, claiming they were safer there. My grandmother's intricate wooden keepsake box, which had always sat on the mantelpiece, vanished into Melanie's domain. Then came the second year, and the pressure escalated. Melanie started talking about selling the house. "It's just too much, Sarah," she'd sigh dramatically over the phone. "The market's good, we should really capitalize." I agreed, in principle. I knew the house was old and required significant investment. But every time I suggested we meet with a real estate agent, or discuss a timeline, she'd become vague. "Oh, I've got a few feelers out," she'd say. Just waiting for the right moment. She was stalling, I knew it. She wanted to live there for free for as long as possible, perhaps even hoping I'd get tired and sign over my half for a pittance. The family reunion trip to Maine was the final, undeniable proof of Melanie's intentions. It was an annual tradition, a week-long gathering of aunts, uncles, and cousins at Aunt Carol's sprawling seaside cottage. This year, my parents' siblings, Aunt Carol and Uncle George, had specifically invited me. I'd been looking forward to it, a chance to reconnect with family outside of Melanie's orbit. But a week before the trip, Melanie called. "Oh, Sarah, about Maine," she began, her voice dripping with false concern. "It's going to be so crowded this year. I just don't think there's room for everyone. Maybe you could skip this one? You know how Aunt Carol gets stressed." I knew Aunt Carol got stressed, but I also knew she loved a full house. I called Aunt Carol directly. She was genuinely surprised. "Of course there's room, sweetie. Melanie said you had a prior engagement." We were so disappointed. My stomach clenched. Melanie had lied. She wanted me out of the picture, not just from the house, but from the family itself. The car pulling away, the laughter, Melanie's smirk, it all coalesced into a single, painful truth. She wasn't just trying to sideline me, she was trying to erase me. That night, sitting alone in my quiet apartment, the humiliation still fresh, I pulled out my parents' will. I'd read it countless times, but this time, I approached it like a complex research project, the kind I'd tackle for a patron at the library. I cross-referenced clauses, looked up legal definitions, and read between the lines. My parents, bless their pragmatic hearts, had anticipated potential sibling squabbles. There was a specific clause, tucked away in the section about property division, should either heir fail to cooperate in good faith regarding the sale or maintenance of the property, or deny the other heir reasonable access for a period exceeding 6 months, the aggrieved heir shall have the right to initiate a formal appraisal and sale process, and to secure all contents of the property for equitable division, placing said contents in temporary storage at the non-cooperating heir's expense if necessary. Melanie had denied me access for years. She had certainly failed to cooperate in good faith regarding the sale. And she had just deliberately excluded me from a major family event, confirming her intent to isolate me. This wasn't just about a house anymore, it was about reclaiming my dignity, my inheritance, and my place in my own family. I spent the next 2 days making phone calls. I spoke to a lawyer, a real estate agent, and then, most crucially, a reputable moving and storage company. The lawyer confirmed my interpretation of the will. "You have every right to do this, Ms. Jenkins," she said. "It's a bold move, but entirely within your legal purview, given your sister's actions." The moving company, Guardian Movers, was discreet and professional. I explained the situation vaguely, a family estate that needed to be cleared for sale while one owner was out of town. They understood. I booked them for the following week, a full 5 days after the family would have departed for Maine. I also arranged for 2 large, climate-controlled storage units. The real estate agent, a no-nonsense woman named Brenda, agreed to prepare the listing for the Elm Street house. "We'll get it on the market the moment it's empty and clean," she promised. The plan was simple, meticulous, and entirely legal. While Melanie and the rest of the family were enjoying lobster rolls and ocean breezes, I would be emptying our childhood home. Every single item. Not just my half, but everything. The will stated, secure all contents for equitable division. I intended to do exactly that. The day the movers arrived, the house felt strangely quiet, almost expectant. I used the spare key I'd kept, the one Melanie hadn't found when she changed the locks the first time. The air inside was thick with Melanie's cloying lavender air freshener and the faint scent of her unwashed craft supplies. I walked through the rooms one last time, a ghost in my own past. My parents' old armchair, Melanie's haphazard stacks of magazines, the chipped vase I remembered from childhood, it was all still there. The only thing missing from the mantelpiece was Grandma's wooden keepsake box. I knew it would be in Melanie's room. I directed the movers with precision. Every piece of furniture was catalogued and wrapped. Every box of Melanie's craft supplies, every designer shoe, every piece of sentimental junk she'd accumulated was carefully packed. I ensured a detailed inventory was made, itemizing everything. It took 3 full days, not just for the heavy lifting, but for the careful documentation. I even found Grandma's wooden keepsake box tucked away in Melanie's nightstand drawer, hidden beneath a pile of old scarves. I opened it. Inside were faded photographs, a lock of my mother's baby hair, and a tiny, tarnished silver thimble. These were our family's memories, not just Melanie's. I placed the box gently into a personal bag, a small act of reclamation. By the end of the 3rd day, the house was a hollow shell. Every stick of furniture, every painting, every knick-knack, every rug, every curtain, gone. The walls bore the faint outlines of where pictures had hung, the floorboards echoed with a new, unsettling emptiness. I left nothing but a single, crisp white envelope taped to the inside of the front door. Inside was a certified letter from my lawyer, informing Melanie that the house had been formally cleared for sale, all contents secured in storage, and that she could contact my lawyer to arrange for the division of said contents and the formal process of selling the property. I drove away from Elm Street for the last time as an aggrieved co-owner. The house, once full of life and then choked by Melanie's possessiveness, now stood stark and silent. I imagined Melanie's face when she returned, and a quiet satisfaction settled over me. 5 days later, my phone rang. It was Melanie, her voice shrill, barely coherent through our furious sobs. "Sarah. What have you done? The house. It's empty. Everything is gone." I took a deep breath. "Melanie," I said, my voice calm, "I've simply exercised my rights as a co-owner, as outlined in Mom and Dad's will. You've been uncooperative regarding the sale, and you denied me access. All the contents are safely in storage, inventoried. My lawyer will be in touch to discuss the next steps for the sale of the house and the equitable division of the contents." There was a stunned silence, followed by another torrent of angry accusations. She called me a thief, a monster, said I'd ruined her life. I listened patiently, then calmly reiterated that she should speak to my lawyer. Soon after, Aunt Carol called, then Uncle George. Some were angry, some confused, but a few, sensing the desperation in Melanie's voice and remembering her past behavior, were quietly supportive of me. The family was fractured, just as Melanie had always tried to fracture my relationship with them. But this time, the fault lines were around her. The sale of the house was swift, once Melanie realized I wasn't backing down. She tried to fight it, to delay, but my lawyer was firm, citing the will and the clear evidence of her non-cooperation. Melanie was forced to accept her half of the proceeds, and to deal with the logistics of retrieving her possessions from storage. I never saw the house again after I left that day, but I heard from Brenda, the real estate agent, that Melanie had been furious when she walked into the empty space, screaming about missing heirlooms that were, of course, all accounted for in the storage inventory. I used my half of the inheritance to buy a small, charming condo, just big enough for me and my books. It's not a grand Victorian, but it's entirely mine. No one can smirk and leave me behind here. On my bookshelf, among my favorite novels, sits Grandma's wooden keepsake box. It's no longer a symbol of what was taken, but of what I reclaimed. It holds the memories of my family, on my terms.